Sure. I would say that the discussions are ongoing. There are people who feel very strongly on both sides of that decision, and so I would submit that that discussion is still ongoing at this time, and I'm not aware of any decisions that have been made.
We also yield to Representative Tom Malinowski.
I would agree with my colleague that these are open questions, but let me share some of the considerations. I think number one is Allied unity. For the sanctions to have the crippling effect on the Russian economy that we need, allies have to move together. It can't just be the United States. We have allied consensus right now to move devastating sanctions against the Russian economy should Putin take further aggressive action against Ukraine. And I think Putin is crystal clear that that will happen. There's no doubt in his mind. There is a concern that if the United States were to move alone too soon, the sanctions would not be joined by all of our European allies and would therefore be less effective against Putin, which none of us would want. I think a second consideration, although many of us, I think, would be comfortable with some additional steps right now. Personally, I have supported tougher sanctions against Russia than President Biden has in the past. But there is a concern that if we were to impose all of the sanctions today, that Putin might conclude he has nothing left to lose. In other words, he might say to himself, they've already imposed all the pain, I might as well take Ukraine. And we certainly would not want to have that effect on him. So I think those are some of the considerations. But you should be clear that the sanctions that we have prepared will be absolutely devastating and that there is 100% unity between the United States and our allies that they will be imposed should he move, and he knows it.
And I want to add to that when we left Brussels, there was a delegation of the European Parliament who will be coming to the Ukraine to say just that there will be devastating sanctions placed upon President Putin should he continue his aggressive behavior. And that includes every member of the EU Parliament. They asked that question specifically because they want to come themselves, and I think they arrived Sunday, so that it is no question about their unity, as it is no question about our unity in regards to the devastating and crippling sanctions that will be placed upon them should Mr. Putin continue his aggressive behavior. I heard somebody else. Go ahead.
As my colleagues have stated, we all stand ready in collaboration with our European partners to have devastating sanctions, devastating consequences if Russia decides to take further aggressive action. It is the preferred path of both the United States and our European allies to continue pursuing diplomacy and dialogue and to find a path to peace so that those won't be required.
Okay, next question. Yeah, Natalia, Interfax.
Yes, we've heard about the plans that the United States are going to help Ukraine economically to its finance sector. Can you please tell us more what exactly is going to be this aid and what are the chances that it will be approved?
Well, we know that the economy here, President Zelensky is very concerned about. And we know that there's been a conversation in that regards. And we've asked at every meeting that we've had here, what do you need? And the reason why we ask, what do you need, is because we will then bring it back to the United States Congress and go to, for example, our Appropriations Committee so that we can look at what we can do to be of further assistance. As I indicated earlier, we've already done $650 million in just a year. And we are not limiting ourselves to just that. So we're listening, and I know we'll have a meeting with President Zelensky a little later this evening. and hear what his proposals are and take them back to the United States Congress and let them know that we are serious about doing what we can to make sure that the dollars that are necessary are here for the people.
Next question, yes.
Here's one for the Republicans, perhaps Mr. Montgomery. There are some narratives being spread among the Republican far-right base, fueled by some anchors like Tucker Carlson, suggesting that perhaps the United States should not support Ukraine that much and even back Russia at this standoff. Do you think these narratives pose a real threat to this unity you've been talking about tonight?
I think what you've heard from me is sort of my position on this, and I speak at least on behalf of the Republicans who are present here today, and I think for many other Republicans. You know, when you put troops in Belarus on the border of a NATO country, that changes the game. I mean, that's a whole nother level. We have an Article 5 obligation to those countries, and we're not going to ignore that. So that's my position on what's going on here.
Yes, Oksana, go ahead.
Everyone today is talking about land lease, so-called land lease. What are the chances of this legislation to be adopted, and what's in it? Do you have stingers with Ukraine in this legislation? Thank you.
I didn't, is that land lease?
Land lease.
Oh, land lease.
The weapon systems. You want
Go ahead.
So there has been lethal aid given for some time now. There is more lethal aid coming, including the javelins, and you asked specifically about the stingers. We have allowed for the Baltic states to make a transition of those, and so yes, we're helping all we can.
Hi, I'm Mikey Sherrill from the House Armed Services Committee. And you know, part of the reason I'm on this delegation is because I think we very much wanted to assess here in Ukraine what the feeling was among the Ukrainian people about the support we were giving them and what they would need. And I will tell you, I have been incredibly moved and impressed with the people we've met, the people on the street who have spoken to us about how they feel about the potential of a Russian invasion, what they would do in the face of that. And I wrote it down. I was so impressed with what one young woman, Oksana, said to me. She said, right now, if we feel something, we can post about it. If we have a problem and we want change, we can tweet about it. In Russia, we could get jailed for a single post, for a single tweet. We don't know how to live in that world, and neither would you. And that's a message I'm taking back to the American people, that the desire here for democracy is strong, that the people here are willing to fight for democracy, and that we as the United States have an obligation to ensure that as a democratic nation seeking to preserve those values that we believe so deeply in, that we have an obligation to this country. And so we are looking, as you heard, at our military obligations here, what we can provide. Certainly we have a list of requests from the Parliament, from the Ministry of Defense, which we will be taking back with us and assessing our ability to provide that.
Okay, any other questions?
One question. Suspicion National Broadcasting Company. There were messages in the mass media about the 45 aircrafts with the military aid to Ukraine. As we know, today we have only 4. My question, is it true? And what aid can expect Ukraine in some weeks or days or months?
Well, I think that what you've heard from all the members basically here, that one of the questions we repeatedly ask is, what do you need? We understand that timing is everything, and timing is very important. So we were asking what needs to be expedited, what can be utilized in a timely frame. The reason why President Biden talked about a distinct possibility of an intrusion is because we know weather has a consideration also. So there's a window of which Putin could decide that he wants to move. And so we've got to make sure that you have every defensive weapon to protect the people. And that process is taking place as we speak. And we're working on that to make sure that, and that's the reason where when we get back, we'll be going back to our respective committees to make sure that there's a follow-through in that regards.
Okay, thank you. We have time for another question, or we'll wrap. Yes, go ahead. Israeli TV.
Consider to send boots on the ground in some states, and if yes, which one?
Now, as indicated by Representative Green, as indicated by the Ukrainian government, they're not requesting troops on the ground. What they have said is, we will fight ourselves. If it comes to that, we are ready to fight. Just help us with the equipment so that we have what we need to defend ourselves. So there is no statements that have been made of troops on the ground and no requests. It's clear to me that the people are firm that they want to stand and maintain their independence and the freedoms that Vladimir Putin threatens.
I'd like to add a little bit to that and to affirm that there has been no statement on either side about boots on the ground. But I think what's really important about this group coming here is that we're able to bring back, as Representative Green talked about, to the people of our communities, our constituents, an explanation of why this matters. You know, why are we here in a place where many people have never been or never seen? I'm fortunate enough that my father was born in Lviv, and so this is something that's personal to me. But most people in the United States and in my community wonder why we should care about Ukraine. And it's important that we go back with these stories. It's critical that we go back and explain why we should be sending aircraft, let alone humans, to this part of the world. And so I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have been here, to be able to bring back that information and bring back why we need to care about Ukraine, because it is a matter of defending literally the democratic institutions of this area of the world, and also, frankly, of the planet.
Let me just add one other thing. It's easy for us to forget, but talking to the Ukrainian people, talking to the government, this isn't a new fight for you. Your country was invaded in 2014. This has been an ongoing fight for the last 8 years. So you've been defending your country. You've been, people have been dying in the defense of this country. And I walk away with the impression that the Ukrainian people are ready to fight and defend your democracy, your rights. As the world's oldest democracy in the United States, the principal value of democracy is that people get to determine their path forward. That's why this is important to the United States. That's why this is important to all freedom-loving people around the world, because there are autocrats like Vladimir Putin. He can't win this fight. That's why it matters to us. That's what matters to your citizens, and that's why we have the full confidence that at the end of the day, we will all prevail.
Representative Sports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to reassure you that the United States and European Union have a clear understanding that all of European security is at risk. I also want to reassure you that the United States will always remain committed to our allies and promoting peace, stability, and freedoms around the world. And I would also like to encourage the Ukrainian people to stay united and be ready. Freedom is never free and never easy, but it's worth it. And I'll say it in Ukrainian. Свобода ніколи не буває безкоштовною і легкою, але вона того варта. May God bless you and the Ukrainian people.
I just want to make sure that we emphasize that the United States commitment to our Article 5 commitments to our partners in Europe, especially to our NATO allies in the East, is ironclad. There should be no questioning or concern that if there were to be anything affecting our NATO allies, that the United States would stand ready to maintain our Article 5 commitments.
Thank you very much. This is not the last time you'll see members of Congress in the Ukraine. We will be coming and standing with the people of Ukraine and with all democratic and freedom-loving countries like Ukraine. I just close with it because as Representative Green said, this is critical in the year 2022 to not allow someone to just come and take sovereign lands. Just as we will never accept the fact that Putin and Russia is now occupying Crimea. Crimea is sovereign territory to the Ukraine. And I want that message to be clear also. We cannot have the taking of land of a sovereign country. And we'll stand united in that regards. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.